Now,
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
I'm sorry, how does this thing work again? It's 5:06. It's O'Connor and Company on Monday, July 17th. And thanks for tuning in here. Thanks. Huge thanks. Oh, by the way, my name is Larry O'Connor. Great to meet you. It's been 2 weeks. 2 weeks. My goodness. Huge thanks to Vince Colonnese for stepping in there for a few days in the morning. The mighty Derek Hunter. And, of course, the ubiquitous Mike Opelka. It takes a village, Julie Gunlock, to fill this chair.
I had so much fun with those guys, but it is great to have you back.
Thank you. It sounded like you had fun. I loved seeing all the social media reaction to everyone. And boy, have I got a lot to say and a lot to talk about. And as usual, we have quite a bit of help to along the way to discuss these things. At 6:05, Michelle Evans from Independent Women's Network is going to join us. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. At 8:35, Link Lauren, culture critic and commentator on TikTok. And peppered throughout the morning, we're going to talk to an old friend who has now joined our team again after several years. Jamee Witten, the legendary Jamee Witten, is now our morning traffic gal.
Right.
Which goes back, gosh, I know Mornings on the Mall with Brian Wilson and we had Jamie. She was our morning traffic voice for many years. I want to say she retired, obviously temporary retirement for several years. I want to say it was around 2016, I think. And now she's back with us. Lisa Baden, of course. Everyone has noticed over the last month that Lisa Baden has gone into retirement. And we've got Jamie. We talked Jamee Witten to come back and join the team. I can't wait to talk to Jamie and welcome her back to Mornings on WMAL here in O'Connor and Company. So that's all coming up. But I got to tell you, so I was gone for 2 weeks. And during that 2 weeks, they found a bag of cocaine. They investigate. Well, they changed the story 4 times about the bag of cocaine.
Where it was found.
They had an extensive Secret Service investigation about the bag of cocaine, and they covered up the story of the cocaine all while I was gone. That's efficiency. Yeah. That may be the most efficient the federal government in Washington, D.C. has ever operated.
They knew they needed to get this all over with before you got back. Because honestly, this story just screamed, Larry. You would have had so
I would have done 4 hours all morning on it. I'm really disappointed that you got to play with that one the entire time while I was gone. And they somehow covered it up.
Yeah, it was
without anyone noticing.
Yeah, I mean, we all know whose cocaine it was, but I tell you, Kamala and Joe sure were in rare form. So that made me even go, was it Hunter's?
You know, it could be a community bag. The reason they couldn't get the fingerprints is because there were so many latent prints.
It's only an 8-ball. Okay, Hunter can do that in like 10 minutes. So
Exactly. That's small potatoes. I loved everybody saying, Hunter's in recovery now, so it can't be his. Right. It's like, he's been in recovery 10 different times.
You also missed the horror of the Biden family on the balcony on 4th of July.
Oh, yeah.
Which I do. If you have missed this, I mean,
I saw some of the videos going by.
Chris Plant said, like, Jill Biden looked like she's on the deck of the Titanic. The tension in her face, gripping onto that balcony, right? It was a perfect description there.
Well, I missed that, but certainly we're going to hit some of the stories that we missed. But you certainly don't want me coming back after 2 weeks and talking about all the things that you've already been talking about for 2 weeks. It's like, hey, Larry, if you want to talk about it, why don't you not go on vacation?
That's true.
I had a wonderful time. It was done through Young America's Foundation. It's not a WMAL event, so I didn't do a lot of talking about it leading up to it because it's not like the Chris Plant cruise. I actually saw Chris Plant. His cruise and our cruise crossed paths in Lisbon, Portugal. This was a 2-week cruise with Young America's Foundation. Governor Scott Walker, myself, Peter Schweitzer on board as well, and a whole lot of great patriots who support Young America's Foundation, about 100 strong, actually. And we hit Portugal and Spain and France and Ireland and England.
Awesome.
And Wales. You got to separate Wales and England. I forgot.
That's right.
Great Britain.
Good of you.
But this included a special trip. We ported in St. Malo, France, which is about 2.5 hours from Omaha Beach and the Normandy Cemetery. And the cruise ship didn't offer that as a tour because it's kind of tight to get there and back and really do it right. But Young America's Foundation is like, oh, no, we're going there. And so YAF booked their own private 3 buses to cart everybody out there. And it was if anybody if you get a chance to be in the vicinity, go there.
Yeah.
Go there and see the Normandy memorial, the cemetery, and the entire historic exhibition of it. It really is stirring.
It is.
It was
It's
great.
wonderful.
So we got to do that. We celebrated July 4th. It's been a long time.
I know.
July 4th and all the things that have happened. But it was a great trip. And I got to tell you, I've never really spent a lot of time in France. It's not so bad. They're pretty good there.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing with the food and the wine and the cheese and all that stuff.
Yeah, your pictures were beautiful.
Thank you. Well, and if you do want to see a little bit of a photo log, I guess I did post
Yeah, you did
some
on
some
Twitter.
highlights on my Twitter feed. So I have a theory about France now, because we spent 2 days in Bordeaux, overnight in Bordeaux. And I think that everyone's negative opinion about France is actually everybody's negative opinion about Paris. I think Parisians are a little different
Like any city.
than French. Yeah. It's the big obnoxious
Although
city
I've
with
had
obnoxious
wonderful experiences in Paris. I think
with Parisians.
yes.
Oh.
I mean, they're lovely,
Are they?
and
Are
I've never had a bad experience. I did when I was 16. But I was 16. I deserved it.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think it just, you have to be friendly and willing to try to say the basics in French. And pretty soon they just take pity on you and switch to English.
At
But,
least you get an E for effort.
yeah, I think I have never had a problem with Parisians. But I agree with you that it's probably more likely.
I think it's more concentrated.
Yes.
The problem. Well, and also, let's face it. I mean, as we were, rolling into Bordeaux, we were seeing Paris burning with the riots and with the violence and with the protests. And Macron is just completely, neutered over there.
Yeah.
And it's a very specific Parisian issue. Yes, I know that the migrant issue, as they call it, and the lack of cultural integration in France is not specific just to Paris. We've seen stories of horrific violent attacks in the countrysides as well, but it's certainly not as focused and concentrated as it is in Paris. And,
Sure.
and again, Bordeaux is just phenomenal. The legend is that Napoleon, when he was conquering everything there, and took over France, he went to Bordeaux and said, "Oh, this is what Paris should look like." So a lot of the architecture that you see in Paris that looks like traditional, like this is what Paris, it actually was stolen.
Napoleon bulldozed Paris.
Yeah.
Absolutely bulldozed
So
it.
when they had to rebuild it.
Yeah, the Marais district is sort of still the oldest section, one of the oldest sections of Paris. But that Arc de Triomphe and that Champs-Élysées, that is not very old.
No, it's not. It's you get this American. You remember the movie L.A. Story with Steve Martin? Great movie. And he's touring this woman from England around L.A. And I always remember one of my favorite lines is he stops in front of a building in Los Angeles, and he said, "Now this is Los Angeles' historic district." Some of these buildings date back as old as 75 years. And the British woman just looks at it because, you start to get numb to it because we were touring these medieval castles in Portugal and in Spain. And then we get to Bordeaux and it's like, most of this architecture is from the late 18th or early 19th century. And we're like, oh, is that it? That's all? Come on. It's like Mount Vernon. That's nothing. We got that.
Yeah.
It's that. Let's face it. You care about Western civilization. You care about our history. You care about our heritage. And I don't mean our ethnic heritage. I mean America's historic heritage. You got to go and you got to get to it. You got to learn it and you got to see it. And it really was something else.
Well, you had such a great trip and so many places to see. But I was really impressed too. I guess it was 2 weeks, but you stayed a couple days in each location. It wasn't just like a day trip onto shore.
For a lot of them, it was day trips, but there were 3 places in particular where we had a little extra time, and I want to talk about that, including the last place we were, where we just flew in last night from London, because London's fascinating right now. I'll give you some observations about that, and as well as sort of regrouping and catching up on where we are here. But first, here we go. As I live and breathe, it's 5:15 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with the one, the only Jamie Witten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939. News Talk 105.9.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Larry O'Connor here, back in the saddle with Julie Gunlock and Jamie Witten back on the team. Coming up at 5:35, we're going to have a quick conversation with Jamie as well to see what she's been up to and how excited she is to be back with us on WMAL. So yeah, the first few days before we actually got on the ship, we had an extended stay in Lisbon, which is a phenomenal city and sort of not always on everybody's regular bucket list, right? When they think of Europe, they think of Rome and Paris and London, and understandably put Lisbon on the list. And I got to thank you because you spent 10 days in Lisbon, I guess last year, right?
Yeah.
So you gave me a lot of tips about what to do there.
My husband and I would love to retire too.
Yeah.
Well, it will not happen, but we absolutely fell in love with it. And I'd read a lot about it. That's why we chose to take the kids there because I'd heard really great things about it.
It's great, although I was struck by the graffiti. This is a beautiful city, and you've got this beautiful architecture, and it's sort of like the melding of Europe and the Mediterranean, geographically as well as sort of culturally, and so much of it was defaced by graffiti, which was shocking to me.
There's a seediness a little bit to Lisbon, and which is kind of unfortunate because Lisbon is known for its tile work on the outside of the buildings.
Yeah.
And that frustrated me as well. There is a big graffiti culture there, but I have to say sometimes I kind of like that about Lisbon because it did feel like you were in a city.
It felt a little bohemian. It felt a little, I get that.
Felt a little bit throwback. I mean, I traveled a lot as a teen and a young woman, and I feel like everything. So many European cities look the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked it.
I still equate graffiti with crime. And because it's crime, it's vandalism, and it sort of makes me uneasy. But also, here's the funny thing: you go to D.C., you see graffiti everywhere. Yeah. But the difference is our buildings again date back, almost 100 years, right? Where you say, these buildings that are being defaced, you're like that's a jewel. That little building. Well, I think
it also you associate with crime, but we also associate with am I in a bad area?
Right.
Right.
Gang stuff
It makes
and
you
violence.
nervous. It's not like that.
And that was the same with London. We spent our last 3 days were in London. And again, if you're in the right neighborhood, perfect, great. I guess it's like any big city.
Mayfair.
Yeah. Oh, that's where we stay.
I know.
Hyde Park at Mayfair is kind of silly. It's like Meredith was walking past all of these shop windows with these incredible fashions. And I said, this is really just like a museum. We're just looking at them in the window.
You're not allowed to touch them.
There's no going inside any of these places. They're just here for show. This is it's an exhibit.
I will take you to TJ Maxx as soon as we get home.
London feels like, I know this is an American perspective, but London feels like a giant British theme park. It's like they decided, let's put a big theme park here, and the theme is London.
I mean, London is very difficult for regular people to live in nowadays. The cost.
It's insanity.
You actually made this point when we were off the air. You said, "Oh, Lisbon's great for prices. We could feed the entire family, $70, right? Whereas, London, forget about it. Like, you better pack snacks.
Yes,
because
London's not affordable in any way whatsoever. You got to be super rich, but it was so we didn't do much. We did all the things that were free, pretty much. We did spend money on a tour of the Globe Theater just because since I was a teenager in my theater days, I've just always wanted to be at the Globe, and that was phenomenal. Wimbledon was going on while we were there, so everyone was insane about that. And then we got, I guess every summer they do these self-guided tours of Buckingham Palace where, and it helps raise money to keep the art exhibit going and whatever other things going on. But of course, this is a coronation year. So everything about it was about the coronation that just occurred. And I don't think I've hidden my feelings about the Queen Consort. not a big fan of Her Majesty Camilla.
Yes.
They're just trying so hard to make you like her. Mm-hmm. They recognize they've got an issue here. Mm-hmm. And so much about the royal family right now is about sort of, please be nice to Camilla. Look how great she is. Look how wonderful she is. I'm sorry, it's not working. I was trying. Even after the whole tour, it was...
Yeah, I kind of would love to have a drink with her, though. She seems like she would be
a little
fun.
gossip going on. Sure.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, we had this is going to sound so stupid, like I'm dropping it in. We had a dinner with Nigel Farage while we were there.
Well, that is very cool. Yes, tell us. Come on, gossip.
Nigel Farage, who is amazing and incredible, and I want him to run for office because he's a broadcaster now in London, and I don't need that, okay? Just stay in your lane because he's so good and such a great communicator. And he started, because somebody in our group asked about Camilla, and said, and he said, I got to tell you, she's done a great job rehabilitating herself and rehabilitating her image. And, there are a lot of, Charles and Diana were an arranged marriage, and he said there are two things working in her favor right now that are just really turning the public. So I guess the British public really does love her now.
Yeah.
And there are two things working in that. Number one, Meghan Markle.
Yes.
Meghan Markle has helped Camilla.
Yes.
More than anything.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is she never, and I didn't know this, but Nigel Farage was like, emphatic about it. She never, ever, under any circumstances, ever talks to the press. Ever.
Fascinating.
Ever. Unless there's like a staged, planned, specific event that is very controlled and very everything. But she doesn't just, off the cuff give an interview or do
She's on
whatever.
a razor's edge, though. The minute she missteps. She's smart to
It's
have
brilliant.
everything coordinated.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, I have read the rumors about Meghan Markle and Kamala.
Yeah, it's
I
not
said
pretty.
Kamala.
Oh, Camilla.
Oh, it's hard to do. It's easy to do. And she was no fan. So for that reason alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Pick your poison.
That's why I'd really like to have a drink with her.
I was getting there, and I was like, okay, I don't hate her, I guess. And then you do the exhibit, and they show her dress from the coronation. And it's like embroidered into the dress are her two dogs and the names of her grandchildren. And her, purple ermine robe was actually more intricate and more detailed.
He loves her.
Than the king.
He loves her.
But the dress is like, it's not about you. This isn't about you.
I thought her dress was very simple. The look of it, it was not ostentatious.
When you see it up close, like I did, Julie. It's 5:24.
Making sense of your world.
I don't know where to begin.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Thanks for taking my call.
Making sense.
All right, enough. I'm back from vacation. Time to work now. We got a lot of news to get to. We're still trying to get to the bottom of the cocaine at the White House story.
It's all gone, all over.
Does everybody really think it was Hunter?
Oh, yes.
I think that there's a lot of different suspects, actually. I mean,
Okay.
Hunter's. It's never. Do you not know your Agatha Christie? It's never the obvious one.
Okay, look, I agree. I think everyone's, yeah.
We'll get into it.
Yeah.
Plus, Jamie Witten joining us in a bit. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington. A Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News. Now.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
I'm back. Don't take the show away from me. It's just a vacation. Larry O'Connor back here at 5:37 on O'Connor and Company. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Did you miss me, Julie?
I did.
I was texting you like every day. Meredith's like, could you put the phone down, please? We're in
Love the pictures.
the French wine country. Coming up at 6:05, Michelle Evans. By the way, French wine, not bad. I mean, it's not Virginia wine,
Yeah.
but it's okay.
We mentioned you with the governor. We'll tell you about that later.
Oh, I saw that you had Governor Youngkin on. Oh,
Yeah.
good, yeah. 7, yeah, great. Glad you got good guess while I was gone, yeah. 7:05, Joe DeGenova. And at 8:35, Link Lauren, culture critic, and joining us. Oh, let's do this. Let's do this the right way, because we have a very important moment here. Has it been 7 years? Is that possible? Jamie Witten now right back where she belongs, doing traffic right here every morning on WMAL. Now in the new iteration of O'Connor and Company. Jamie, good to hear you again.
I'm back.
Yay. Am I right? Was it 2016? Is that when?
You know, it was 2018.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
Okay.
it's been 5 years.
Wow.
But that's a long time.
Yeah, and what was it like to sort of, because you had been doing traffic for radio for, I mean, since Marconi invented
over 20,
the thing?
over 20 years.
Did you enjoy taking a few years off and just sort of taking a breath and regrouping?
I did. Well, that sleeping in the morning thing, it's not what it's all cracked up to be. No, I did. I enjoyed being with the family. My boys, my twins, are now going to be seniors in high school.
Wow, how did that happen?
So when I left, they were still, 12 years old at the time?
Yeah.
So now they're 17 and they're driving and, all that good stuff.
Do you give them traffic advice? It's like, all right, where are you going? Let me give you the alternate route. Hang on.
Oh, do I ever? I never stopped doing traffic.
I bet.
I would drive my husband crazy. He's like, "You're still doing traffic reports." I'm like, "I know. I still am."
Now, Jamie, it's so great to sort of meet you for the first time.
I know, Julie.
And I'm thrilled that you're back on. Larry talks about you all the time. But my question is, how has traffic changed in that time frame since I feel like it's gotten more dense, but I'd love your opinion on that.
Well, that's a great question because, of course, COVID changed everything, right?
Yeah.
There nobody on the roads. That to me was mind blowing. Yeah. And then I thought, well, people aren't going back into the office really, so things are changing. But then something happened. It's been growing over the past 12 months really, and we have rush hours again.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating to me. You get on the road and you think, oh my gosh, I remember when it was easy.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, it's back. So there's been a couple of changes. Of course, social media helps with traffic. There's a lot we can get from cameras. There's a lot we can get from our phones. It's funny, right before we were ready to talk, I'm like, wait a minute, I need to check on that camera on the Beltway because there's a crash, people, at the Georgetown Pike, and help is with it. So, there's a lot to see. Well, so, I don't want to miss a beat with what's happening out there. Our callers are so helpful, our listeners. So that's really great.
Yeah, in fact, I love the way that you were interacting on social media often with listeners who would see things. Do you want people to reach out to you? What's the best way if they're driving and they see something and they haven't heard you say anything about it yet? What do you want them to do?
Scream out their window.
Oh, they're already doing that, James.
Oh, they are, aren't they? Let me think about. We haven't quite figured out the best way to deal with that because with the traffic center, our Twitter page is down right now.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And that's what I was.
Good to know.
So as soon as we get that rectified, I'll let you know.
Excellent. Well, and listen, I love the way you present this information. It's very memorable. It's easy to sort of, sometimes you hear a traffic report on other stations. Apparently there are other radio stations in this town. And it's just like information. And it's just like you didn't even hear it because it's just blasted at you. And I love the way you're so conversational about what's going on out there.
Oh, thank you. Well, the goal that I had from the start was just to help. That's all I want to do. If I can just help one person, how many people can if I can help somebody, I'm happy with that.
Well, and I think you're going to fit in just fine here with our O'Connor and Company team. Yeah, we've put together.
I heard the word O'Connor and Company, and I'm like, yes, count me in.
Well, welcome to the company.
Welcome.
I'm so happy. I'm glad to be home.
Yay. All right. Well, we'll hear from you every 10 minutes, first on the fives, as everyone knows, and looking forward to it. And also, by the way, sometimes we find some stories that have Jamee Witten written all over them. And so maybe as we start to iron out the kinks and get things going, we'll include you in a couple of those fun topics because you have some great insights on things that go well beyond the traffic.
I appreciate that. Appreciate it so much, and I'm thrilled to be back.
Thanks, Jamie. Welcome back. That's Jamee Witten, folks. You'll hear her every 10 minutes on the fives in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. It's 5:47 here, catching up on so many stories. One other quick observation, by the way, that it just occurred to me. We're going to talk about the latest out of Ukraine and what's going on there. But one thing that I noticed in Europe, which was a little unnerving, that even on government buildings, you'll see that Ukrainian flag flying, in some cases either side by side with the flag of that nation or sometimes even like above it. It's obviously in a sign of solidarity with Ukraine, you invade one European country.
Maybe it's a measure of how much they've committed financially to these.
No, I think it's in lieu of.
You think?
Yeah, it's in lieu of. Although I must say, it was nice to see that instead of the transgender flag dominating everywhere. Yes. Which honestly, until we got to London, we didn't really see much of that stuff.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting.
Yeah. That's a vacation. Whew.
Meanwhile, yes, it was a nice break. Meanwhile, along those lines, a new study out is incredibly disconcerting. This was published in Newsweek by Redfield Wilton Strategies. 44% of millennials, now millennials are going to be like late 20s into late 30s, basically,
Mid-30s.
right? Really? I think it's up to like 39, 40 right now.
It says right here in the article, 25 to 34.
Well, there's some millennials who are older than that.
Look,
gotta
I
say.
identify as a millennial. Why not?
My wife is a millennial, but she identifies as Gen X, which makes everybody happy. I identify as a 12-year-old, as you know. That said, 44% of self-identified millennials between the ages of 25 and 34 favor criminal charges for people who use the wrong pronouns.
God, they're dumb.
What were you saying about retiring to Lisbon? Can we
Yeah,
just let's go
let's
now?
go.
Just get
Let's
out.
go.
It's
Honestly.
over. Almost half of people between 25 and 34 want to put you in jail.
Well, this is the same
if
demographic.
you use the wrong pronoun.
This is the same demographic under this, Cato did this study that showed that most millennials are okay with surveillance, 24-hour surveillance in your home, because it'll cut down on child abuse or spousal abuse or other things. So they're okay being watched constantly so that,
Right.
there's no abuse.
Right, because the people we got people who are in charge of enforcing the rules. And what have you got to hide as long as you're not, By the way, I know people between the age of 25 and 34. They've got a lot to hide.
I mean, this is Red Guard stuff that scares the holy crap out of me. It really does. This is just...
We've got a lot more work to do.
We've got a lot of work
now,
to do.
here's what's interesting, because you've been in the talk radio business for going on a year and a half, almost 2 years now. How long has it been?
About that.
About 2 years. About 2 years, almost, right? As you know, when we do talk radio, we break down our listeners into certain age groups and demographics, right? And generally speaking, young people start turning to talk radio in their early 30s and their mid 30s, right? And so I just think they're just gonna, when they get out of the morning zoo rut and they're, not talking about people who are making prank calls and talking about, body parts, they're gonna start taking their lives seriously, and also they're gonna start having children, and then things change.
Yes.
And so I gotta just think that you grow out of this stuff. The problem is that's a huge voting block. A huge one, 25 to 34. And we've got work to do.
Well, and I think women are lagging behind that. When you look at the videos of people going to Drag Queen Story Hour and all this, it's
or
all
confronting Billboard Chris.
It's all white, middle class women.
Yeah.
And to me, I have no idea what's going on with my demographic, but yes, we have work to do.
That said, there are some other gender issue data points that are moving in the right direction. 2 years ago, 61% of Americans thought that there were only two genders. Now it's like 67%, I believe. We're now up to, so that needle's moving in the right direction because we're actually discussing the issue, and we're discussing it in a way which is just impossible to argue with. For instance, now 69% of Americans want only biological women to compete in biological women's sports, right? They want to protect women in sports. And you can get into the whole, testosterone levels and competitiveness and scholarships. I've got a very simple way to talk about this. I think our daughters should not be exposed to a naked man without their consent.
Well,
that's all. It's that simple. And when you put it that way, it's pretty hard to argue unless you're a complete and total faithless radical.
There's an awful lot of faithless radicals around here.
There are.
And for instance, in Michigan, where it's now a crime to misgender someone. Yeah. I mean, that passed. And
well, it will be fought immediately.
Of course. But the point is that actually got passed by a state legislature. That is terrifying. And yes, I think we are moving the needle on women's sports, but women are still competing against biological males. So we got, you said at the top of the hour, we got work to do.
We've got a lot of work to do. And it reminds me, our friend Benny Johnson, who does some great work on social media, put out a flashback video of Antonin Scalia during some sort of constitutional forum that he was doing in a congressional committee room with Justice Stephen Breyer. And he talked about how, anyone who thinks that the Bill of Rights is what protects our society and keeps it free, you're not paying attention, because every banana republic, every totalitarian, authoritarian regime out there, they all have their Bill of Rights. They all say they have free speech. But free speech is only as free as the altruistic and or thug individuals who are in charge of enforcing that free speech. And if you got a bunch of thugs in there, your free speech is gone. You can keep your Bill of Rights, but if you've got thugs running the show, you're done. And that's why we talk about the things we talk about.